So thank you very much for giving up your time to be here today. Massively appreciate it. It's a journey for all of us. My journey started when I was sitting in the position of President of the Chamber of Commerce here in Guernsey. And everyone every week used to say to me, "What are you doing about connectivity?" And the initial response is, "Well, I'm just here as President of Chamber. I'm here to sort of watch and observe." But actually, there's a movement in Guernsey at the time called the Dandelion Project. And they were saying, we all, as individuals, need to own problems. No one else is going to sort it out. And the other thing that they were saying in the Dandelion Project is that small communities are vehicles for change. They can prototype our ideas, they can be innovative with social enterprise, try new things, and you can actually change the world in small communities by experimenting and seeing through novel ideas. So I invited everyone I knew just to throw ideas at me. How can we solve connectivity? And some of the ideas were cable cars. Can we have airships? Can we have seaplanes? Every possible method of getting from A to B. And in fact, we put it up in a big whiteboard. And we said, right, we're going to use this approach called opportunity set thinking. Look at everything and then cross things out. You have to be open-minded. So we found out, for example, that to have a cable car, you needed a mountain on Guernsey and a mountain on Jersey. So that was crossed out. We found out for airships, thanks to a study that Zeppelin New Technologies in Munich did for us, that an airship would work between the islands. Vertical takeoff, vertical landing, low input, costs a tenth of a plane to run. So this is quite promising. When can we run it? Well, for two months in the summer. Apart from that, okay, so we're going to cross that out as well. What else have we got? And we worked our way down the board, and eventually we got to a fixed link. And I called a chap called Stephen Witham in Ramboll, and I said, I know this is going to sound madness, but I see in the Faroe Islands that they've been building these tunnels, and I saw, Ramboll was working with the Faroe Islands. Is this a ridiculous idea, connecting the Channel Islands with a tunnel? And I was adamant at the beginning that it had to be a road tunnel, because it's all about independence, and us in the Channel Islands, we love our cars. Stephen Whitman, first of all, beat me up and said, forget car tunnels, it'll never work. We haven't got the space, we need safety, and it's all about speed. Okay, but is it a stupid idea? And he said, it's a challenging idea, but it's absolutely not stupid when we look at what we're doing in the Nordics. And it came down at the time between, can we do this using excavation techniques that they use in the Nordics and the Faroe Islands? Because they do these things really, really low cost. I mean, some of the cost points I'm going to be asking the engineers about. What's the price per kilometre? These are key numbers that the audience here need to hear. And what we could see was potentially a very low-cost tunnel or a very expensive tunnel, depending on whether you're using, like a channel tunnel type tunnel boring machines. We can't possibly see that being viable, or these excavation techniques, which we've seen as being very cheap. And so it was until a couple of years ago, I went to the World Tunnelling Association in Copenhagen, and I bumped into Errol. And I said to Errol, can you use his excavation techniques in the Channel Islands to go this distance? And Errol said, you know what, we're going through wet tunnels the whole time. We're going through all sorts of different types of rock. And I was so excited to hear that actually what we're talking about here seems to be in the bounds of knowledge and everyday activities that you do in the Nordics. And what we need to do next is we need to cross this knowledge chasm between our world, where these ideas seem ridiculous, and their world, where what we're doing seems ridiculous. We have to take their normality and make it our normality. And we can see massive benefits for the tunnel. So, what's the vision? We've got growing challenges. We've got a vulnerable tourism sector. Tourism has been in decline in Guernsey and Jersey since the 2000s. We're reliant on the finance industry. We're subscale on everything we do. We've got an ageing population such that we might have to increase tax rates above 50% over the next 15 to 20 years. If we have to do that, the Channel Islands are not viable, and we'll have to switch off because we're not going to be competitive with the global markets. It's the same in Jersey, it's the same in Guernsey. Ageing population are not going to make the Channel Islands viable. We've got a narrow tax base, we've got a finite workforce, we've got housing shortages, and we've got high costs of everything. And over the last 20 years, GDP growth has been increasingly elusive. So how do we create a vibrant economy, not just one that's ticking along on the bottom of the barrel? We have to create a really vibrant and strong economy. And what we've seen in the Faroe Islands is that the tunnels have created economies of scale. We've seen, and Taita, we look forward to hearing from you, that they've doubled their GDP over a 10-year period just by making it easy and effortless to get from A to B. These are things that we need to learn from. Us Normans have been really good at adopting ideas from around the world throughout time. We've done amazing things. We built the longest breakwater as a global leading project in Alderney. We joined the north of Guernsey with the south of Guernsey to create one big island. We built huge defensive structures on the Channel Islands, from Gorey Castle in Jersey to actually sucking up 10% of Germany's concrete in Western Europe. We have been, big on engineering throughout our lives. And now's not the time to stop. And I just want to leave this thought with you that humans are from a genus called Homo. Now, whether you're Neanderthal, whether you're Homo sapien, there's a key point about Homo. And if you ask an archaeologist, what's the difference between an ape and a Homo, a human, be different species? They'll say, well, if you look at the fossil record, you'll find that humans were shaping stone. So what I'm going to say to you today is, shaping stone is core to what it means to be a human, be it making the Dehu Domen, be it making a house, building a tunnel. These are all things that we can see in the archaeological record as being core to what it means to be human. And what I'm talking to you today about is being human and addressing problems by shaping rock. So the opportunity is about speed. There's a big relationship between demand and speed. If we can connect St. Peter Port to St. Helier with a train that goes faster than 100 miles an hour, we'll be able to get from St. Peter Port to St. Helier in 15 minutes. We'll be able to get from Jersey to Coutances in 20, and we access effectively another Channel Island. They've got space, they've got cheap housing, they've got unemployment, they need economic stimulus. And there's a population of 70,000 and a GDP of 2 billion euros, and we go out 60 minutes and we're hitting Caen. And there we've got a population of 1.5 million, 42 billion pounds of GDP. We go out a little bit further and we've caught all of Lower Normandy, and we've caught 3 million people. And that's why this project is called Connect 3 Million. We want to connect 3 million people in Lower Normandy to us. We want to create cultural vibrancy, and it's all about speed. So we want to enrich trade and tourism, diversify the economy, greater connectivity, achieve critical mass between the islands. One of the questions that you guys are asking already on Slido is, why would Jersey want to connect to Guernsey? And connecting Guernsey and Jersey will create a critical mass in government services and businesses as well. We can grow our tax revenue by collecting more foreign revenues. We can access a commuting population in France, and we can alleviate housing, and we can increase our GDP. Basically, we can make the Channel Islands vibrant and sustainable for the next 200 years. That's the goal. It's not about us. It's not even about our children. It's about building something for our grandchildren, just as our forefathers have done before us with a harbour connecting the North Island to the South Island. It's all been about thinking about the long-term future. So let's start with Taita Samuelsson. Taita, please come and talk to us about your work in the Faroe Islands. Thank you.
Thank you very much for being invited to come here today. My name is Taita Samuelsson, and I'm the CEO of the government-owned tunnel company in the Faroe Islands. We have just completed a big mega structure project in Faroe Islands, which comprised 2 subsea tunnels. The Faroe Islands is a group of islands in the middle of the North Atlantic. It consists of 18 islands, and today 7 of these islands are connected with bridges and 4 subsea tunnels. We have a home rule, but we are a part of the Danish kingdom, but we have our own government and own parliament and own laws and so on. And people are asking us when I'm telling about this project that we have done, if Denmark funded it, but that's not the truth. It's fully funded on the Faroe Islands. We are not part of EU, and the main industries in the Faroe Islands is fishery and farming of salmon, and we have a growing tourist industry as well. We have made significant investments in infrastructure for the last 60 years. We have around 1,000 kilometers of road system in the Faroe Islands. We have 23 mountain tunnels, 3 bridges, and now we have 4 subsea tunnels. And the goal with this is to make it easy to commute around the islands, and also to connect the suburb areas to the capital Tórshavn. So the goal has been that we should reduce the travel time to the capital down to approximately an hour. So today, around 90% of the population of the 54,000 people are connected with the roads and have less than an hour to commute to the capital, where all the services are, education, social events, and so on. The project that we just have completed is it's these red tunnels you can see here. It's 2 subsea tunnels, 11 kilometers long each. So in total, we have just carried out a project of 22 kilometers. And now we are planning to do a new tunnel to the most southerly island down here, which will be around 23 kilometers long. We have made all the geological surveys so we are coming quite far with that project. Now we are looking into how to finance it before there will be taken a political decision. So when we started on this project back in 2014, the government or the parliament established a law saying that they should create a company who is 100% owned by the government, and then inject 400 million Danish kroner, which equivalent to 46 million pounds, and then the company should find the financing, how to finance this project. And then they also issued a minimum traffic guarantee, saying that if the income from the tolls are lower than expected each year, then the government will subsidize the difference. So we looked around the world where we get the cheapest financing. So this project is financed by the equity and then debt from US and UK based pension funds, together with a tiny piece from the Faroe Islands as well. And the law was approved by all parties in the parliament. So that was very good, because then we had the peace to plan the project and carry out everything. So, and that, I think, was very important for the success of the project. As I said, we have 4 subsea tunnels in the Faroe Islands, and this picture just showed the development in the traffic. The first one, the light blue, the Voatunnelen opened in 2002, and the traffic has been increasing all the time. Before the project was carried out, it was estimated around, I think, 300-500 cars per day, and now it's about 2,500 cars using the tunnels. So, and the project was paid back in 2018, around 15-16 years after it was completed. So now it is almost free. It costs £2 £1 each way to use the tunnel. And the next tunnel, Norwegian, opened in 2006, and is also fully paid back. I think it was in 19 or 2020, it was fully paid back. And it also costs around £1 traveling each way. And then the red light, that's the estuary tunnel, which is the longest tunnel, 11 kilometer long. It opened in just before Christmas in 21. And the traffic is increasing all the time. And the fourth tunnel opened just before Christmas here in 23. And they are in a combined project, as I said, and they will be fully paid back in 2040, around 15, 16 years from now. So we have had great success with subsea tunnels. It has changed the society totally. People living in the suburb can travel to Tórshavn to get education, go home, travel in the morning, go home in the evening, having their families there. The companies can hire people from different regions. So I was CFO of the largest farming company before I started on this project. And we have had in my department people from all around the Faroe Islands working there. So it opens a lot of opportunities when you have these infrastructure projects. And many of the advantages, you can see them before they are open, and people can think of this as a solution, and so on. So it's a great benefit to do these projects. It's like it's a very big investment. It's like when a family buys a house, it looks very expensive, but you can use it for the rest of the life and in the old future. This just shows the estuary tunnel, where it goes. It's famous with this roundabout. I'll show you a picture afterwards. And this is the Sandøy tunnel. Both are approximately 11 kilometers long. When you do such a big project, you have to focus very much on risk, because it's a huge investment. It's an investment of around 7,000 euros, maybe 6,000 pounds or something like that per capita in the Faroe Islands. So we focused very much on risks in the planning phase, did all the geological surveys, looking at which companies were able to carry out a project like this. What was the biggest risk? I think of course, the geological risk is big and the construction risk. But the most expensive risk maybe was the interest rate in this project, because we only have around 20% in equity, the rest is debt. So we were very exposed to the interest rate, change in the interest rate. So we fixed the interest rate back in 2016. So I think that was good when we look at the development interest rate today and how it will maybe, which level it will be for the next 15 years. I'm not sure how much time I have left, but someone has to give me a sign when the time is over. Yeah, this is just showing the investment per capita in the Faroe Islands compared to other similar big infrastructure projects. I think the people in the Faroe Islands maybe were not aware of how big this project was compared to the society, because we have had so success with the other subsea tunnels projects in the Faroe Islands. But we planned very well and were very much focused on the risk. So the both tunnels were delivered on budget and on time. Just go. Yeah, risk management again. We had a lot of experts. Some of them are here today. Have been working on the Faroe Islands or giving advice for the last almost 30 years. And we had very experienced people on the project. So and that's key, to get very good people with long experience, known the risks, and so on. We have a very small project group or management in the company. Actually, I'm the only fixed employee. Then I have a board, and then we have hired consultants which are on the project from time to time when we need them. Ivan Grove has been on the project all the time since 2014 and was also on it before when they were looking at others, how to do the project. Yeah. And many people are asking about how many people are working on this project. While the construction is on the way, there have been around 150 people on the project in 8 shifts, because it's running 24 hours, 7 days a week, all days during the year. So maybe 40 people are on the project in the daytime on each shift. So it's not like you have 1,000 or 2,000 employees or something like that, when we have used this Norwegian technique of drill and blast, at least. Yeah, this is just picture from the Estuary Tunnel. It opened in 2020. The traffic had been a bit lower than estimated in the beginning, but that was probably mainly due to that it opened during the corona. But it's increasing. It increased 10% last year, and 20%, I think, was year before. As I said, completed on budget, and it opened 6 months earlier than in the financial planning. And it went viral, so it went all over the world in the media. And by Time magazine, it was elected by one of the greatest places to visit in 2021. This is the Sandøy, it says Estuary Tunnel, but it is Sandøy Tunnel. It just opened before Christmas, and the traffic so far has been the double of what was expected. So that's very good. And it opened also on time and on budget. So I'm very positive about doing a tunnel here. I think you should do it. It is a huge project. But I can really recommend it, because it has so many benefits to the society in the long run.
Thank you for inviting us. First of all, Your Excellency, ladies and gentlemen, we are quite excited to be a part of this and tell you something about our experience. Martin said something about bringing our normal to the Channel Island, and this is something I will tell you something about. I am the network director for something called the Norwegian Tunneling Network. This is an organization that consists of universities, research organizations, advisory companies, experts, construction companies, but also product and service suppliers. But this network also have a very close connection to the public offices. So this means the road authority, the rail authorities in Norway is part of our work. And when we are going abroad, we also bring the government with us. So that means that we have the Team Norway, and the Team Norway is also funding our activities abroad. So when we are going out and telling about experiences and our competence and how we can assist in different countries, we have Innovation Norway with us. We have an institution called Export Finance Norway. That is very interesting when it comes to big projects, because we can also be a financing partner. But we also have the Royal Court, and we have the Research Council, and so on. My experience, I've been the former national tunnel manager in Norway for some years. And this means that I have been responsible for dealing with all clarifications and formal approvals for all road tunnels in Norway. In both early studies, planning, construction, but also in operation. And we must not forget that they also need to have a rehabilitation. And this is also a very important part of this. This means that I have in-depth knowledge about Norway's tunneling industry, but also the Norwegian standards, infrastructure, and traffic management. So Norway, it's kind of the land of fjord crossings and long tunnels. So if we compare ourselves with the rest of Europe, so we have actually passed 70 tunnels that is longer than 4 kilometers. We have more than 40 tunnels that is subsea. So we have some experience with this. And I will tell you something about these projects. At any given time in Norway, we have 50 road tunnels under construction. And at any given time, we have 150 tunnels under planning. So that means that the regulations and our experience is getting better every day. And believe me, we have done all the mistakes that is possible to do. So this means that we have now regulations, procedures to do this the correct way. And this can come to a benefit for the Channel Islands. So this is also very important. So why do we build subsea tunnels? Well, a subsea tunnel in Norway is just an alternative. But it is a very, it is an alternative that is very often chosen. But the alternative is maybe a ferry, a bridge, or a tunnel connection. So what we are looking at here is the feasibility, future traffic prognosis, but also what kind of costs it means. Investment, operation, maintenance, socio-economic impact on society, and sustainability. So for instance, the investment of a subsea tunnel is very often less costly than a bridge solution. But when it comes to the operation of a tunnel, that is a little bit higher. So we need to check this out. But also other reasons is important. In this moment, we are building the world's longest and deepest subsea tunnel in the world. This is 26.5 kilometers long. It's a double tube tunnel. The reason for this is the main route on the west coast of Norway. So this is part of the European road network. So this means that we have to have that kind of standards because it's a very high traffic. And we also are connecting an island in this case. What is interesting about this project is if we close this tunnel, it will take 4 hours to make the diversion around this tunnel. So this means in this case, we had to solve this within the tunnel. So in this case, we use the other tube to divert the traffic when we are doing maintenance or if we have an accident. So this means that we can have this open at all time. And then we have other examples. So located on the west coast of Norway, we have connected a small community to the mainland. And this is 2,700 people. A district road financed locally and road tax loan from the Norwegian Parliament. The project assumed in yearly daily traffic in the first collection year is 693 vehicles. So this is a very low traffic solution. And if we look at the numbers here, it's 3 subsea tunnels, it's bridges, and a lot of other infrastructure. We built this in 3 years to the price that you see in this slide. And this says something about the effective, how effective we can also work in this project. So the cost efficiency we are bringing to the table is also very important. And this is something probably one of the best reasons to also involve experience from Norway and our competence. What influences cost? In this project, you have some interesting topics because you have to choose between road, rail, and the different kind of transport modes. So that is different kind of alternatives. You also have to look at the traffic congestion and capacity issues. This will influence cost. Choice of standard. So if it is if you have a high capacity on this, you have to have a higher standard. Geographic conditions and ground conditions is also a very important part that will influence cost, but also national, regional, and historical development of relevant legislation. So when you are connecting to France, suddenly you have to be aware of that as well. Dealing with risks, safety, and operational issues and mitigating measures is also very important, and how procurement and contract is handled in the investment project. But also how it's handled in the operational phase. So that this will also influence. And I would like to say something about operational phase, because this is something we have learned a lot about lately. So it's very important to set goals and plan for all factors that influence reliability, availability, maintainability, and safety in operation. So this means that you have to think ahead when it comes to when you have to rehabilitate the tunnel after maybe 20 years. If you are not taking this into account and are planning for that in the investment, then you might have a very high cost later on. And this is what we also have implemented in our regulations and how we are working in Norway. Be aware, a part of the cost in the project is to establish an operational scheme which suits the purpose. That means that you have to have a kind of a traffic control central dealing with these tunnels. This is often forgotten. Another cost is to operate the tunnels. It is of great importance to bring in experience for operation and maintenance in an early stage of planning. Which type of transport mode and how will this influence investment cost and operational cost is also another thing. And you are now in a phase where you are looking at something called a concept selection investigation. And when we are looking at this, we are looking at a step-by-step process. And what can be found out in a very early stage about the feasibility in this, and more or less what will this cost. And then you have to do further on studies, and of course, before you start building it, you need to know exactly how much you need to know before you are doing the construction. So we will probably also propose as kind of a step-by-step, so you can actually have some determine something before you are doing too large investments as well. So a concept selection investigation contains of needs analysis, project triggering needs, strategy chapter, overall requirements for the project, assessment of current options you have, alternative analysis, assessment of concept and recommendation, and guidelines for the further planning. And to say something about how we are willing to use tunnels. On the west coast of Norway, we have one very great example. We have a very difficult stretch along the coastline for vessels, boats. And this is relevant also for Guernsey, because you are a ship nation, and you know what we are talking about. And we decided to build a ship tunnel to avoid this dangerous stretch. And this ship tunnel is 1.7 kilometers long, 50 meters high, and 30 meters wide. And this is how normal it is for us to think tunnel. So it's a very good example. And the excavation of that tunnel will be the same as all the excavations in Norway in 1 year. So it's a huge project. So please let me introduce Eivind Grøv. He knows a lot more than me.
Good afternoon, everybody, and it's a great pleasure to be here with you today. I will try to sort of answer two questions. Is this doable here between Guernsey and Jersey? I believe it is. Is there any magic connected with this type of project? To me, no, there is no magic whatsoever. What is a subsea tunnel? There are different ways of making a subsea tunnel. I've added some examples here on this slide. It could be submerged tunnels, which is kind of a tube which is floating somewhere like 10, 15, 20 meters below the sea level. It could be a tunnel which is sitting on the sediments in the bottom of the sea, or it could be a rock tunnel, which is a tunnel which is excavated fully in rock. And the last one is the one that we are talking about in this context, a rock tunnel which is fully excavated in the rock. And I have had the great pleasure to be involved in subsea tunnel projects stretching from Newfoundland in the far west to Anadyr in Russia, almost close to the Bering Strait in the east. Back in the middle of the 90s, people in Iceland started to look at a subsea tunnel crossing the Hvalfjordur, which is located some 40 kilometers northwest of the capital of Reykjavik. At that time, the population in Iceland thought that this was an engineering fiasco, totally. But with the good help of friends within the Public Roads Administration in Iceland, who had been to Norway a number of times and learned about Norwegian tunneling, we were able to start. We got a contractor on board, and after 4 years, from 94 to 98, the tunnel was opened. And it became a great success. We estimated less than 2,000 vehicles per day in average over the year. Before the pandemic turned in, it was 6,000 vehicles per year, just to show you the growth that this tunnel actually experienced. I've been to Malta. I've been looking at and I've been assisting the government of Malta with a subsea tunnel between Malta and Gozo. We came to the state where we actually invited contractors worldwide to pre-qualify for the project. Unfortunately, there were some hiccups. One of the disqualified contractors appealed the pre-qualification concept and the way that we did it, so everything turned out in absolutely nothing. So that was an unfortunate story, but let's hope that the people in Malta is picking this up again. I've been involved in all those 4 subsea tunnel projects that have been actually executed in the Faroe Islands. All of them have been performed according to this rock tunnel concept, where we are actually excavating the tunnel in the rock itself. So if we turn this into what do we have here in Guernsey and Jersey, we haven't done any investigations for this particular purpose at all. We were just looking at some available material, and it tells us that in Jersey, there are kind of volcanic rocks which have been metamorphized over the years, 700 million years of age. This is not something which has not been excavated tunnels in before. This is very, very familiar to us. This morning, I was with Sally, and there. And we were looking at the nice granite that you see here in Guernsey. Absolutely fantastic construction material. There is nothing better than this in Norway. So there is no magic with this. This is something that we are capable of doing. Whatever. There is a certain stretch between the 2 islands. And I'm now looking only at the tunnel between Jersey and Guernsey, and not the one which is continuing down to France. If we look at this stretch between Jersey and Guernsey, there is of course something that we do not know a whole lot about. What I've seen is that in one of the maps that we have found, there is a fault zone which is marked in that section of the tunnel. And this is of course something that we do have to investigate. And we have to investigate to such an extent that we can put a certain risk on this. But this is neither a magic or something that we have not done before. There are investigation methods which are capable to tell us what is the ground conditions in the area between the two islands. We need to know the depth of the sediments. Well, first of all, we need to know the depth of the sea. We need to know the thickness of the sediments. And when we know that, we will have to put the tunnel alignment as a minimum of 50 meters below the top of the bedrock. So that's a very critical parameter for us, because that will decide how deep we have to go, and it will also decide or be decisive for how long we need to approach to get to the surface on the two islands. 50 meters of solid rock is what we need. As I said, seismic methods would be the most, let's say, easy way to do it, the most common way to do it, where we are getting the most information in a quick way and to a cost-effective investment. People we have been talking with has asked, do we need core drilling? Well, yes, we can do core drilling, but core drilling would be a much more expensive way to do investigations. Teitur told us about how we managed risk at the two last tunnel projects in the Faroe Islands. There is a contract system which is actually used in Norway that is kind of balancing the risk-taking between the contractor and the owner, because those are the two bodies which need to be able to take the risk. And I'm not talking about financial risk whatsoever. I'm talking about geological risk. I'm talking about construction risk. When we have done these investigations, we have a much clearer picture of what the risk, the geological risk would be. And we have to transfer that information into a construction method, and also the quantities of things that need to be done with respect to the construction itself. The number of cubic meters, the number of tunnel length, the number of rock bolts, the number of sprayed concrete, and so on and so forth. That is a risk that is taken by the two main parties, mostly by the owner. The risk which is related to the excavation, the construction itself, and being able to do the construction according to expected quality, that is the risk which is taken by the contractor. So it's a fair and square risk-sharing principle. And I think that was basically what I had to say. Again, this is not something which is magic. This is absolutely something which is doable. We need to do certain investigations, and we need to be very, we need to be very accurate with what we are doing to be able to make such a tunnel project becoming a reality. But it's absolutely doable. Thank you.
So I'm just going to whip through these next slides very quickly, but we've got to make some pertinent points. Everyone's asking, how much is it going to cost? The initial indications are, now I presented ranges of numbers before, and everyone obviously reports the highest number possible. But the key thing you need to walk away with today is that it's looking like there's hard rock between the islands and hard rock between Guernsey and France, although no one knows for absolutely certain, so we have to set that out. if we are looking at hard rock, and we can use these techniques, even if it's wet rock, we could be talking about numbers in the region of £1 billion. So if we are talking numbers in the region of £1 billion, we're not talking about tunnel boring machines, we're not talking about the Channel Tunnel, we're talking about simple, fit-for-purpose tunnels, as our Nordic experts have been telling us. And here's a thought. Gibraltar and Spain, there's about 10,000 vehicles, 36,000 people a day crossing over the Campo de Gibraltar border. So Gibraltar's got a GDP of about 2.7 billion. Guernsey and Jersey combined have a £9 billion economy. So if we're thinking about movements into and out of the islands, I would suggest that it wouldn't be unreasonable to find 24,000 people using the tunnel a day. And it wouldn't also be unreasonable to spend 30 quid to use the tunnel as a return. So what I'm saying in very, very simple mathematics, and this isn't a complicated traffic modelling exercise, this is really making the point that tunnels are not costs, they're assets, and they generate revenue. They generate revenue that you can tax. They generate revenue which pays for debt. This isn't like a hospital. This is an asset generating income. So if you could pay £30 to travel between Guernsey and Jersey or return, so that's £15, whatever, we're talking in the region of £263 million income in year one. And if we had average or below average rates of growth, and we've seen from tighter slides that their growth rates have ranged between 7 to 12% per annum, I'm going to say let's assume 6% growth, then as an illustration, so this isn't like a magic mathematical model, this isn't a detailed traffic modelling, I'm just making the point here with simple numbers. Over 10 years, you could be talking about £3.5 billion worth of income. Don't dwell or get angsty about these numbers. This is just an illustration to get the point over that tunnels generate income. So we've got to do a pre-feasibility phase, we've got to get into feasibility, and we've got to do detailed tender and design. These are the key next steps. And we need to get Guernsey and Jersey working closer together. Ideally, we would have a Guernsey and Jersey group working together to scope out what the next steps would look like. And we really need, ideally, a tunnelling corporation, which is pan-Channel Islands, to approach this together. This is what we'd like to see. And certainly when we presented this in Jersey yesterday, I did get a raised eyebrow, Guernsey and Jersey working together. This is exactly what we're talking about. And if you want to be big, you have to start thinking big. And in summary, I want to start by thanking everyone on the Connect 3 Million group. Rollo, Laura, Bella from Unity, thank you. I want to thank Sally Diamond and Matthias Holmes, who's based in Cambridge, in our economics team. I also want to thank Chris Brock for his input. A lot of work has gone into this over a long period of time. And we need to take people with us on this journey that we think this is in the realms of reality, not fantasy. We think there's going to be massive benefits for the economy. So what next? It'll be ambitious but doable. Similar things we've been doing in other places. It'll be revenue generating and top up the economic benefit, opening up finance options. So it is a challenge, but we think it's doable. And we've got to commit to investigating it properly. We have to send a signal to the financial markets that we're not just flipping around on this. We have to do this with seriousness of intent. And obviously, as we've been talking about in public spaces, if Jersey goes on to start taking core samples and Guernsey's not on board, we're sending a signal to the markets. So I want to see Guernsey and Jersey talking to each other with seriousness of intent, putting money on the table, sharing the risks between each other to make this activity happen, and to send a signal to the marketplace that actually we can do it. We're a safe pair of hands.
Right, so the first question we have got from the room, which has been voted on by lots of people actually, what benefit is there to Jersey to connect with Guernsey rather than just go straight to France?
Chris, we'll split this answer into two bits. So part one is if Guernsey and Jersey work together, we're talking about a £9 billion economy. This is a serious combined enterprise, and it means we're much more interesting to France. It means we can obviously achieve critical levels of scale, but importantly, we are more valuable to Jersey because we're a £9 billion economy. We're a significant influence and attractive enterprise for France. So working together gives us a significant clout. And one of the things that I've been speaking about, if you're putting on like a tourism event, my wife and I were in Malta a couple of weeks ago. They got a population of 500,000 people, and we have international entertainment events. So Kylie Minogue will come in, and she'll do a gig, and everyone will turn up. Now, Guernsey and Jersey will have a combined population of close to 200,000 people. So we're talking about doing international tourism events. You know, this is a massive economic enabler. These things are all possible once you've got that critical mass of people. Chris.
Thanks, Rollo.
I think the important thing, the work that we've done in terms of merging public sector services, I think is one of the key things that benefit Jersey as well as Guernsey. It's the overall cost of running the public services in the Channel Islands is £1.7 billion a year. That's operating costs, not capital costs. If there was a 10% saving, that's 150, £160 million a year by merging health, education, and a few other services. So the benefits to Jersey are as strong in terms of overall financial benefit for the community as a whole. I think just in health services, that 1.6 billion, 500 million spent on health in the Channel Islands now, which is a staggering figure. All the estimates show that over the next 15 years, something in the order of health costs will go up by 50%. So that's £250 million on without taking account of inflation. So you can see that it benefits both Jersey and Guernsey to work as one on all of these public services, not all, but on those very high cost ones.
So the next question, if we don't build a tunnel, if we get left behind, but Jersey builds one to France, where does that leave Guernsey? I mean, that's a really hard question, but a high risk. I think that is for Martin.
So this was reported in the paper at the end of a podcast I did a few days ago by the Guernsey Press. And what I said was, the challenge for Guernsey is if Jersey's got access to large, almost infinite numbers of people, if they got economies of scale because they're using France to help them with their health costs, and Guernsey's got higher costs and it's basically hasn't got the same ability to deliver services to the world at the same price point that Jersey can, people will select Jersey over Guernsey. And sadly, not instantly, but over a period of time, everything's going to be problematic. And you know, I said, look, Guernsey's going to look a bit more like Alderney than it does look like Guernsey today. So it's not really a good outcome for Guernsey because it's just going to be an uphill battle. It's going to be really hard to generate a viable economy. So I'm worried about Jersey going straight to France and us not being at the table. You might say you're either at the table or you're the lunch.
Thank you. A question that's probably for our guest speakers, actually. Can the tunnel be used for other infrastructure and services, i.e. electricity interconnectors and fibre optics, etc.?
I think you're still worked on.
The short answer is yes. And this is also done both in Faroe Islands, but also in Norway. So that might be power lines, that might be communication. But we also talked yesterday about water and all kind of infrastructure. So this is an important point because you can have a much more reliable, and you have something you can also maintain, and it will be, well, if you leave it on the seabed, you have some issues around that. And if you can have it secured in a tunnel, it's much better. So when it comes to availability of that kind of services like communication and reliability, it will be significantly better. So that is also one of the positive effects in such projects.
Yeah, I can just add that in the latest subsea tunnels in the Faroe Islands, or in all subsea tunnels, there have been the electricity and fiber cables been put through the tunnels. And to prepare for the green transition, there have been put extra capacity so that we can place windmills in different islands in the island, and so everything is connected together.